All right. So I've been wanting for like months now to make videos against Kraut. And of course, I already did my first attempt on doing videos against Kraut called Don't Trust Kraut. So this video is the second attempt on doing videos against Kraut, and I learned my lesson. I'm no longer going to use corporate media because corporate media is going to copyright your video. Like I didn't think that was gonna happen because I'm actually using corporate media as a source, but like I guess that's not good enough, right? Like you have to like not even like you have to still treat it as if you're using like a movie or a song, which is so dumb. Like whatever though, YouTube I mean I am using YouTube, so I guess I can't complain right now. Even though like what else am I gonna use? Like something stupid like Rumble. But whatever. Going back to the topic. Uh, so all right, so Crow, he's a propagandist that gets millions of views, and also there's reaction channels that have millions of views, and that's a problem. Is that it's propaganda, and there's millions of people watching propaganda and hearing propaganda, and I am fully convinced of that, and I'm going to show you why I am convinced of that. And that's what this videos are about. And here's the thing: he's gonna have voice actors, or at least people, like just he's gonna have voice actors, music. He can have music, but not me, right? um, but I was gonna do music, but like really, well, okay. To be fair, his music is like public domain classical music. That's why you hear a lot of classical music because it's not copyrighted. And then he also has animated balls, so he has great animation of balls just in your face. And then oh yeah, this guy you'll notice that he puts like a British oh, why was I gonna say Austrian? Oh yeah, because he's Austrian. But but he's Austrian, but you will hear a British accent. Now I don't know if he's British, which by the way, if he's British, that makes it worse for him because then you're gonna see why. Because in the next videos, I'm gonna show how biased, how much like how this is. It's nothing but propaganda. Uh, or he's faking his British accent because a lot of white people like to hear a British accent as a sense of intellectual authority. Which I don't know if I want to make a video on that. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you notice like how many times they just keep pushing the Hollywood British accent or like the elite British accent voice as like a sense of like intellectual authority in documentaries and like media, just media in general, like in Hollywood or just talking also well mainly history and politics. You also hear too a British accent, which crowd emulates. Because here's the thing, his channel talks a lot about history and politics, which is a problem because this stuff can affect millions of lives because people vote and people watch his videos. And here's the thing, here's the most important part that I have not mentioned yet. He doesn't use sources. He uses books as scripts. Like he'll nitpick it or like he'll pick the parts that he likes or he'll flat out take it out of context these books. Like yeah, or sometimes he doesn't even have books. And I'll show and when I do the videos that I'm going to respond against, I want to show like what he considers the sources. Just so you constantly notice that it's books and and because there's a video that I'm gonna use a source for what I'm talking about when it comes to the source because that's the main issue that I have is that if you like Crowd is a channel that talks about history and politics, but yet he doesn't use he like this channel doesn't have sources. Like he says like stuff that like he says like stuff like he says it as if he's like an historian narrator, like documentary narrator. But however, he doesn't have a source. He does not have a source for what he's saying. And like he says crazy stuff, by the way, and I'll show you what like in the next parts of the video. And just my source to show you that he doesn't have sources. He just has scripts. Like he uses the books. Like he plagiarizes books and nitpicks the books. And I'm confident that he nitpicks. Like the guy that I use as a source for this, He's very generous to Kraut. However, I'm not. I'm not going to be generous because I think I am 100% sure he's a propagandist. So before I show you the source, I'm going to say, if you're interested in watching these videos, I say, subscribe, like the video, because I'm going to be honest, I think you're going to enjoy it, or you're going to be surprised that this stuff is allowed on YouTube and it gets millions of views. So, and for anyone who's watching, I'm going to say right now, because before I show you the source, because the source is going to be the end of the video, I'm going to say have a good day, good luck to you guys, and enjoy.
I was convinced to make this response because I believe the video presents a certain myth about Russian history, which continues to do harm in the present. I'll be showing footnotes on screen throughout, indicating to check the document below for the citation, as well as additional commentary. Speaking of sources, I began by reading Kraut's, and I should probably point out, Kraut's video is adapted pretty heavily from chapter 26 of Francis Fukuyama's Origins of Political Order, with many of its lines being from the book, with some words changed or moved around.
The Russian princes recruited armies of cavalrymen who were paid not in money, but in land, and the peasants on it. However, because there was so much land, control of the land was not as important as control of the people. The Mongols were a tribal people who had no state or legal structures that they transferred over to the people they conquered.
Now, I'm not completely opposed to him adapting a chapter into a video, although in this case, it might have been better to phrase it as such, since at least to me, the implication was that this was Kraut's words and Kraut's theory. The chapter also has some errors or inconsistencies, which Kraut then repeats, or as a result of changing words around, he introduces some new ones.
By the 1700s, the Russian state was far more centralized than any of its European counterparts, but far more underdeveloped in economy and bureaucracy. There were no regional political structures tied in accountability to a central state. Instead, rule of local provinces was handed out by the Tsar in so-called kormlinye, which means feedings. And the name kinda gives away the predatory nature of the political institution itself.
Elsewhere, Kraut says only 9 families survived Ivan the Terrible, which is from Fukuyama, who himself cites this from Bloom. But if you follow the citation, Bloom doesn't actually say this. The closest I could find was much later, when Bloom says 9 of the wealthiest Romanov magnates were descended from old princely families. So Fukuyama maybe misremembered this, and then Kraut got it from him. However, Kraut also claims to have read Bloom, but didn't notice the discrepancy. But to be charitable, it's possible that Kraut used Fukuyama for the Ivan line, and Bloom for a different part of the video, or simply missed a contradiction between the two. In either case, the works cited frequently support different conclusions, or even contradict the video. The most obvious example being, if it used Razumnovsky for the negatives of Mongol rule, then it ignores the several pages before or after, which would complicate or disprove the claims made. Now, I also recognize YouTube videos have more casual standards, but the impression I get is that the channel seeks to be a pretty educative source of information. So my suggestion is, if not actual footnotes, perhaps consider a mention in the video when a section draws heavily from a source. But to reiterate, Kraut can be whatever kind of channel he wants and do whatever he wants with it. I bring this up because it changes the context of the video. But since I don't want this to turn into a whole review of Fukuyama, I'm only going to critique the video as is, regardless of who's behind an idea. And while we're on the subject, these are all fairly old works, without clear indication of how they're used. Old doesn't necessarily mean valueless, but since our understanding of history is always updating and hopefully improving, relying on only old works can give a stunted understanding. As the video touches on about 1,000 years of history, I won't be addressing everything here, and I'm primarily focusing on the first tenet of the argument, that it was the Mongols who caused or beget Russian authoritarianism. This is a very old theory, and a highly contentious one, which has at best been highly modified, if not outright discarded in modern scholarship.